How we doing, guys? Welcome back to a new video, and in today's video I've got a little tutorial for you from the video that I posted on Snowdonia, that little travel video, and there was a transition in there that I used with a couple of drone shots, mountain drone shots, and a few people were asking about how I did that one, so I'm going to explain it here in this tutorial. So I did it in After Effects, and it basically comprised of two clips. So here's one, the first clip on top, and this is the second one here with the drone going backwards. So we're in After Effects, and what we want to do is got this first one here, as it's pretty much a still frame with the talent here standing here completely still. There's no need to do any sort of tracking or anything for this clip because everything is completely still. So the only thing I did was actually to just cut out this foreground layer. So we don't need this clip in its entirety, we can just use the first frame and just freeze frame it. So just select, right click and go to time, freeze frame, and that will just ensure that it's just one. Once you freeze framed it, just right click, pre-compose, move all attributes to a new composition. And then now what we want to do is just mask out this background here, so we just keep the foreground. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. Obviously you can use the pen tool here just to pen all the way around, or you can use the rotor brush. So just double click the layer, go up here, rotor brush tool. If you want to make this paintbrush bigger or smaller, just hit Control on PC or Command on Mac, and then just drag your mouse up and down to make it smaller or bigger. Also, just go over here to the left and just click best, because that's going to give you the best result possible. And then does a pretty good job straight away, but obviously it's left out talent, and this little bit here you can bring back in. To get this to change from green to red so that you can bring stuff back, just press on the Alt key. And then just zoom in using the scroll wheel on your mouse, or you can come down here and just change the percentage, make the brush smaller, and just want to try and paint out little man over here. Okay, once that's done, just come up here to the top left, go back into your composition and invert foreground background, and it's pretty much just painted out that background as we wanted. So the next thing we want to do, if you just turn off the bottom layer just so that we can see the foreground layer, and if you go in you can see that the edges are quite rough, so just to smooth that out a little bit, just going to go up here again. So just going to go down here, double click and refine edge tool, make it a little bit bigger, and just going to go over the edges and come back into the composition. And essentially what that's done is just to soften the edges a little bit so they're not as hard and jagged as they were before. Don't have to do that, it's just a little nice little extra touch in my opinion. And then we can bring back the bottom clip that we had before. And because this rotor brush refine edge tool can be quite intense on the computer, so I think the best thing to do is to just go to composition, new composition, just make the composition one single frame. Just select that clip that has the rotor brush on it, paste it in there, and just go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. For settings, just go to PNG sequence, RGB plus alpha, because we want to make sure that the background is transparent. Format options, just compression none, press OK, save it somewhere where you can find it easily and render it out. Once that's rendered out, just import it back into your project. Can turn off the visibility for the original one, which has the rotor brush on, and just and then just drag in the PNG layer instead. And yeah, it's basically the same thing, but it's just a very easy to work with picture file rather than this very heavy rotor brush file. Alright, so next thing we want to do is we're going to try and play around with this foreground and background layer in 3D space, or 2.5D space. So you just want to go to layer, new, camera. Default settings are completely fine. Just put the camera on top and just select these 3D cube icons for the 2 drone clips. And yeah, next thing, basically you want to just come down here and just select 2 views. So you've got a top down view and the regular front view, and with the foreground layer just bring it forward in 3D space, and the background as well, you can just bring that back. So we're going to create this illusion of moving forward, and with the foreground brushing past the camera. Go to the camera drop down, transform, select position keyframe on this first frame. I went about 1.5 seconds in. Just move forward the camera until we don't see the foreground layer anymore. And then once we're at that point, essentially don't need the foreground layer anymore because we've gone past it. So just with that foreground layer selected, select Control Shift D and delete the rest of that. With the second clip underneath, I was actually flying the drone backwards, so it shouldn't need anything else done to it. So basically just need to find a point where it starts to fly backwards and just move it forward. So that's essentially the effect done. So just going to be moving the camera forward and then moving it backwards, revealing a new foreground layer. And the only other last thing that I would do is to just play around with the keyframes here, just to ease them a little bit because they're a bit jumpy at the moment. Keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then go over here to this graph editor, and you can just play around with how quickly you want things to go in and out. So you could just have it going smoothly, raising up the velocity, going quickly out, and then slowly back to the finish. And that is essentially the effect done. So just the camera moving in there, and then the natural camera movement of the actual drone flying backwards. So that's the fake camera, and that's the real camera flying backwards. And the only other last thing I would do is just to add motion blur to the 2 clips, just so that when we're flying in, as you can see now, you see some motion blur on that foreground. Just make it look a bit more realistic. So there you go, guys, that's essentially the effect done. If you found it useful, chuck a like, subscribe, and check out this playlist of other editing tutorials that I've got, and also check out the Snowdonia travel film that I created. If you haven't seen that already, I'd appreciate it a lot. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.